Well, let's have a chat with the Treasury Minister, Alf Cannan, and let's deal with the implications financially of coronavirus. And Boris Johnson today in the House of Commons, in question time, in fact, confirmed that people self-isolating will be entitled to sick pay from day one as opposed to day 4. Is that a similar situation here?
I think the first point to make, Tim, is that the Treasury and the Isle of Man government as a whole are taking this whole issue extremely seriously. And it's absolutely right that we take it extremely seriously, but this is not a time to panic. There has been work already undertaken in Treasury to check the robustness and resilience of our infrastructure, of our systems, and undertake contingency planning in the event that coronavirus were to get to the Isle of Man. And again, it's right that we undertake that. We have a huge responsibility to the people on this island. And so I want to reassure you that we have already started work and that we are already some days ahead of the game, so to speak.
You haven't asked the question.
Well, the third point, I suppose, to make clear is that we have, significant financial resources at our disposal. We're financially and fiscally resilient and able to cope with any
we have reserves
needs
for a rainy day
on the island. And in terms of, this is a very fast-moving situation. I think we are continuing to draw up the plans and actions that would be available to us to help support both people and business where necessary on this island. I think in terms of the types of measures that Boris Johnson has introduced today, particularly around statutory sick pay, that will be clearly a consideration. But what I would like to do...
So not confirmed yet.
And be in a position to do is to bring forward the types of measures in blocks, if possible, as and when it is appropriate. Bear in mind, we have no coronavirus on the Isle of Man at the moment. This is not a situation for panic. We're taking it incredibly seriously. And what you are going to find, I expect, over the next few days is, as this situation evolves in the United Kingdom, possibly more announcements coming through, different situations occurring. What the Isle of Man government and the Treasury have got to do is to try and keep a sense of perspective, control, not necessarily react to every single event, but I would like to be crystal clear that we, have drawn up the necessary plans in terms of our resilience, our robustness of our infrastructure, and that we will be in a position, if needed to bring forward our plans to help the people of the island and the economy if necessary.
Let's be honest, though. It's having an impact worldwide on the economic situation, which therefore must ripple through to the Isle of Man economy, surely.
Yeah, well, one would expect that to do so, irrespective of whether the fact we do have a case or have cases of coronavirus on the Isle of Man. We're conscious of that at the moment, but the situation is starting to develop, and we don't necessarily have all the answers to every single economic issue that presents itself. Clearly, there is already feedback coming through that some industries, particularly in the travel and tourism sector, are beginning to get concerned about the level of bookings, for instance, that they are receiving. And again, the Department for Enterprise are working extremely closely with the industry and within government, to start to evaluate that. And, in due course, we will react when the time is appropriate to make any announcements, if needed, about what the government is going to do in those circumstances.
There's a balancing act, isn't there, here? Because you don't want to startle people, you don't want to upset the apple carts economically, but at the same time, you want to assure people that you're doing everything possible on the health side of things.
Well, that's right, and we absolutely don't want to panic unnecessarily or start making hasty decisions on the hoof which actually have no real substance. So a lot of facts have to be established, first of all. Rumours quickly take hold in these types of scenarios.
Especially on an island.
Especially on an island. We appreciate that actually implications are beginning to be felt, that some sectors of the economy and possibly sectors of the community are feeling vulnerable at the moment. But I do want to get the message absolutely crystal clear that we are extremely serious in our approach to this. But there is no requirement for us to start panicking, and nor indeed should we necessarily be panicked into a situation where we're making ad hoc announcements every day about certain actions. I think that we should be in a position to make decisions that are well thought out, have solid basis, and that we've properly planned for.
Only a few hours before you've come up here, stories emerged that Sky News are going big on regarding Flybe. You've mentioned that sectors such as tourism and the travel industry are particularly being hit at the moment. Flybe's reportedly days away from potentially a collapse. That's a worry for the Isle of Man. Huge worry.
Well, it has been a worry for some considerable time, and fortunately up until now that situation has been resolved. Clearly it's raised its head again, if you like, and given the amount of money that's been talked about, £100 million, then this is going to be a matter for Westminster to deal with if they see appropriate. From an Isle of Man perspective, it would be extremely concerning to lose that connectivity and
patient transfer as well.
The possible implications. We have plans in place to resolve that, or to get cover in if the Flybe were not able to deliver the service for patient transfer. But there's a whole range of issues coming out of this potential pandemic that is starting to build now, clearly globally, but now in the UK and with our nearest neighbour. So, we are monitoring the situation. Some of these issues will be outside our control,
which
and
Flybe is, isn't it?
It will
really
be a case of having to react to that. But one also sees a much bigger issue than just the Isle of Man with Flybe in terms of its connectivity around the UK, so I'm sure that story has some way to run. But
an island perspective, Flybe's massively crucial to the island's air connectivity.
And we recognise that, and I mean that's why Department for Enterprise pay very, very close attention to what is happening with all the airlines. But as I say, sometimes things are outside our control.
But have you got a contingency plan in place?
Well,
potentially, if it suddenly went under.
Well, that would be a big issue, not only just for the Isle of Man, but for the United Kingdom government. It may take time to find a replacement airline to step into their shoes. I don't think it's realistic to expect there to be straightforward contingency plans for that type of scenario. We would be working closely with the UK government and with regional airlines to try and establish how that connectivity could be put back in place, because clearly it's important for our people and for our businesses.
Just finally, we've got the UK budget coming up as well, and I'm sure there are going to be announcements relating back to this coronavirus situation. Post that budget, is that when maybe the Isle of Man government will announce a lot more of what it has in place?
Well, I think I'm absolutely clear. We're not going to be bounced into making announcements. As I said, we've tested our systems. We're drawing up a package of measures that we think would be potentially necessary, and at the right time we would bring those forward, either to reassure people or because the situation on the ground was appropriate for us to do so. Absolutely vital, Tim. I've got to get this message over to everybody. We're taking this extremely seriously, but
we don't know what the measures are.
Well,
isn't it time for the government to reassure people?
I am reassuring you, Tim, that we have potential...
With words rather than with seeing...
Packages available. Well, it's absolutely crystal clear that, we do not have coronavirus on the Isle of Man. We are extremely blessed at that situation at present. There's no need to panic, and when the situation is appropriate, and if it is appropriate, then we will release package of measures if we believe the time is to do so. There are a wide variety of things that we could do to help support individuals, to help support businesses. We need evidence behind that, and also we need to be in a position to announce these things in a proper controlled manner rather than being bounced into it just because actions or situations are changing in other countries on a day-to-day basis.